Another week, another media narrative that the Big East is dead. Well, unfortunately, I got news for you. It's not. Welcome to the Big East Energy Weekly on the Big East Energy Network. Oh, look at that on Casey's face. How dare I? Welcome to the Big East Energy Weekly Show with your host, Casey Matthews, and myself here, Mark Zanetto, on the Big East Energy Network. Casey, yeah, the net rankings just came out, and apparently the sky is still falling. Apparently we don't count teams that are ranked outside of the top 45 because, well, that's just part of the media narrative that the Big East is dead. And I'm here to tell you that if it's dead, then we're like the White Walkers from freaking, Game of Thrones. Because
Game of Thrones reference, I like it. That's the first
Villanova at 64, who just had a big win against Temple last night by 18 points at home. You have Seton Hall. Our Pirates are number 50 in the net and climbing. Butler at 21, St. John's at 23, UConn at 8, I believe, or 7, somewhere in that range. There's 5 teams that if the tournament was held today, you're getting 4 bids and a 5th on the bubble. That's over half your league of 11, because we can do math. There's only 11 teams in the Big East. Conversely, you look at the ACC, which has, I think, 10 teams that are potential, more like probably 7 or 8 that are solidly in the field if it started today, and 13 that would not make the tournament, and 8 teams that are over the 82 in the net rankings. So what are we doing here? What is this all about?
It's hard to answer the "what is this all about" question, because I think it's a little weird when you look at. I guess here's what I would say. I'm not a believer yet in Butler, and I'm still on the fence on Seton Hall. We'll see. Seton Hall plays Kansas State maybe today or tomorrow, and that'll tell us a little bit more. It's on the road. It'll tell us a little more about Seton Hall. So I think that's probably part of it, is that there's a little bit of like looking forward. Do you really think Butler and Seton Hall are going to be in there? Because I don't.
Yeah, but Casey, that has zero to do with the narrative that the Big East is dead or that the Big East is having a tough year. It's more about, St. John's having a rough tournament in the Players era, maybe UConn losing at home to Arizona, regardless of injury, Marquette being a complete disaster, your Jays having getting their doors blown off by Gonzaga. Like those are the storylines. It's not about the surprises, but what bothers me is it's not hard to tell a full story. And we're in the business of media and content now as well. So like I have no problem if you pose a question in a thumbnail or a Twitter post to kind of like stir up kind of conversation. Mm-hmm. What I have a problem with is when you list things like, here are the 3 teams in the top 45, or here are the blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, did you forget to like scroll down your computer for 5 more to get that Seton Hall or even down further for Villanova at 64? Because that's where we're at right now. Yeah. Like, and there's not that much different. Like, think about Xavier, who started awful, got crushed by Santa Clara at home. Like their numbers aren't bad in terms of like, just if you look at Evan Mia, if you look at Ken Pom, like the Big East has more teams that are still has work to do, but aren't completely out of it. The only teams that are completely done are Marquette and DePaul. Those are the only 2 teams in the Big East that might as well, cast a net and say their season's over.
Yeah, I mean, but I think you have to separate those 2 things that you're talking about, is the Big East is dead narrative, and then the net rankings deal. Like the net rankings thing doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't. Like the rankings make sense in terms of the narrative around them, compared to the ACC that we were alluding to,
or whoever. Big 12, ACC, doesn't matter.
That doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. They're like, the Big East has enough teams high enough in the net that you should be at least talking about the league as like, hey, we almost have half of our teams in the top, whatever the number is, right? And if you start to change that number, say 80 for the ACC versus 40 for the Big East, like you had kind of alluded to, that doesn't make sense. Okay, but I think that's its own issue. The narrative around where the Big East is at, I actually think is kind of fair for the most part. I wouldn't say we're dead by any stretch. I think anybody saying that is just, again, looking for attention. That's fine. That's where we're at. But the reason why I think it's a fair argument to make in terms of we have we're taking water on the ship here is the expectations for Creighton were to be the number 3 team in the league, compete for probably a top 5 seed in the Big East tournament. And now it looks like we're going to be fighting for our lives to make the tournament. That to me is number one. Okay. I think a lot of people just sort of pencil in Marquette as the next team just because Shaka's always had his teams in that position. And, they're just not very good right now. And they're trying to figure some things out. So I think there's 2. The next one to me is Providence. Providence, for whatever reason, and I said it all off season. I think you said it. It made no sense to me that all of a sudden Providence is going to be this great team to be. I don't get it, and they stink. So it's like, I think when you start looking at that, and then Xavier took some lumps early too that everybody's panicking on Xavier. I just think all those things. And then the last thing, Mark, is the reality is we all thought DePaul had turned a corner last year, and maybe we were silly because we were just, victims of the moment that they had a good showing in the Big East tournament. And now we think, okay, they're going to turn the corner. I'm not ready to say they're not. I still think they're better than they were, but it's certainly cause for concern when you see how they've played, some of the games they've lost. I think all those things combined, like you knew UConn was going to be dominant early, right? I think that's just like, okay, you knew that. You knew, St. John's will be fine. This is what I expected with St. John's. I didn't expect them to be good. We talked about this. They'd struggle and get better. Go ahead.
No, what the other thing I was going to say is like, if you look at the initial net rankings, right? And obviously everything changes. It's going to change daily, right? If you look at how Georgetown started, and that's why even in internal conversations with our guys, we were like, hey, pump the brakes on Georgetown because we do like Georgetown. We like the makeup of the team. But as you said, they don't have shooting. Like there are things that will be exposed. And then they lose a couple of games that they probably shouldn't, at least in the brand of Georgetown. And then that initial ranking comes out, and they're at 122. They're even at behind Creighton, who has had a really tough start, behind Xavier, who's had a really it's these perception conversations that we're having. I think I have the biggest issue with. DePaul is still DePaul, which sucks. I think the expectation around DePaul was more around we like Chris Holtmann. I think he's a good head coach. And it's really just less about maybe the talent around the team and more about, hey, can they win a few games to kind of make so they're not the DePaul of old? Because they're still not. Like that DePaul team from a few years back was literally probably the worst team in Big East history, maybe outside of the Georgetown team, a couple years before Cooley, right? But I think for me, the reason why there's such a narrative is, to your point, is 1,000% about Creighton. It's 1,000% about about Marquette and Providence, but it's mostly, to me, it's really about Georgetown. When you think about where Georgetown started the season, like, because Maryland sucks, like, so that win against Maryland is, who cares? Like, that's a quad 4 win. That Maryland team got destroyed in that Players Era. They just got exposed. I literally watched Players Era games until like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning Eastern time because I'm a psycho. And because I also like to get an understanding of like where these teams are at. And that Maryland team, even though Buzz Williams will eventually get that figured out and has a good recruiting class coming in, is probably one of the dumbest teams I've ever seen in play, like ever. It is easily one of the worst collections of teams, like in terms of like talent and structure, I've seen in a really long time at I major level. So that Maryland team is awful. Then so you take that Georgetown win against them as like, who cares? You won on the road. You basically beat a bye team at home, right? So that's what that completely rocked their ranking down in that 120 range, right? And then you lose to Dayton, who apparently beats every Big East team, but at the same time, that's a team you should win. Like, I'm sorry, like they had that, they made a comeback. They should have had that team won. In that game, I watched it. It was pretty bad to watch because they couldn't hit the ocean if they fell out of a boat in that game. And so that's my biggest issue with Georgetown is like the expectation level got raised and they didn't meet expectations. With Seton Hall, like they beat NC State. They almost beat a USC team, which they probably should have won because the refs totally screwed them in that game. And then they come back and they win the third place game. So that Seton Hall team showed us something that Georgetown did not, which is how do you bounce back from a bad loss or a pretty good loss in this respect? And Georgetown has continued this backslide, and that's part of it too. Creighton maybe can figure it out. I don't think Marquette can because I don't think they're very as talented as the other teams. Right. But at least what we've seen from Butler and Seton Hall is like the ability to win back-to-back games against good teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to this for me is it's really, really hard to earn people's trust, but it's really easy to lose it.
Oh, God.
And I think that's what we're seeing with the perception of the Big East is that it's really hard for people to look at Butler and Seton Hall, myself included, and say, okay, yeah, I believe in this team. But it's really easy to look at Marquette, to look at Creighton, to look at Georgetown, DePaul, all these teams and go, oh, yeah, they're not any good. And I think what it's going to take is it's going to take consistency. It's going to take Seton Hall's got to go to Kansas State and beat Kansas State on the road. Butler, I don't know who Butler has next. Butler has to continue to win. Did they play Eastern Michigan? Sorry, I should have known this. Butler. It's tonight, Eastern Michigan. Like they've got to beat Eastern Michigan because Butler loses Eastern Michigan tonight. I don't know what their ranking is, but
they ain't losing to Eastern Michigan. Okay,
if they did,
if and butts and Kenny's and nuts would have won.
I know, but I'm just saying if they do, what happens is they're going to fall into that same group. Like Butler's still Butler. Here's what's interesting, Mark.
No, they're not.
Maybe I don't know. I'm not a believer yet, but here's what's interesting. And I will tell you this: I've got a little bit inside source. It's not Rose on the Butler alumni.
Ooh.
And I hit him yesterday and said, "Hey, what's the temperature of the group right now?" And he said, starting to believe, but not yet. And they're not super impressed with the Virginia win. Who else was it that they beat? That everybody's so high on Butler about. It was Virginia and South Carolina. Like South Carolina's a quad 2 game on a neutral court. Virginia's right now quad 1 win. So all that's good. But I'm saying they're not ready yet, and they need a little bit more. So I think it's fair for people to also be taking that stance. What I'm concerned with in the Big East is this. All these things being said with the net rankings and where teams are at, if you're Dan Hurley, if you're Rick Pitino, and you're looking at going to let's just look at it because I have the rankings pulled up. If I'm looking at this schedule now and I'm going to play Marquette at home and I lose to Marquette, that's a quad 4 loss right now.
It sucks.
Devastating for your net rankings. Okay. And
can I pause for a second?
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
I totally understand that. But I have to pause and say, if this Marquette, if this DePaul, if these teams that are in that quad 4, quad 3 range in the Big East that are in the bottom of the league, if they are truly that bad, you're not losing that game. It's unless there's something catastrophic. You have an injury, whatever. These are for a St. John's, for a UConn, hell, for those two teams in particular. If you lose to one of these teams on the road, it's on you. Like to me, that's my thing. Like I'm sorry. Like for the fans that are like, well, that's going to screw our net ranking. Well, then don't lose the fucking game.
Okay, sure. Yeah. But I guess my point is this. When you're looking at your schedule and you're looking at you're building your schedule and you're saying, okay, where's our opportunities here? You go to Creighton this year, right? As of right now, to Creighton and win, it's a quad 2 win. Yeah. That's never been the case since the net rankings have come out. So again, it's just like you're not getting as big of a reward anymore for your road victories unless you go to UConn
understand that, but
St. John's.
Conversely, the first game that UConn plays in conference play is guess where? At Hinkle in Butler. And unless Butler loses by like 40 tonight to Eastern Michigan, that's going to be a quad 1 game. So if you win that game on the road against Butler, who's 21 in the net right now, and you win that game and it's a convincing win, how high does UConn climb in the net rankings?
Well,
or conversely, if you're on the Butler side, if you beat a UConn at home, what does that do for you? But I'm just saying, like,
all those things are great and true and totally valid. What I'm saying is
like, there's no difference in our league versus other leagues. If you're Duke and you go to play Boston College and it's a quad 4 game and you lose that game, which you typically don't, what does that do for your conference? It's the same. It's the same conversation.
It is, but it isn't at the same time, because you have to look at your opportunities for quad 1 wins.
I understand that.
But no, hold on. But I don't think you are, because what I'm trying to say is it's not just that. It's also, you now have a schedule full of landmines that you didn't anticipate having. You could go in, again, Big East of saving last year. You could go to Creighton and lose. And it's like, this year, you go to Creighton and lose, it's a quad 2 loss. It doesn't kill you, but it should be an opportunity to really help your resume. Whereas on paper right now, December 2nd, it doesn't. That's why there's concern. Now, could those things change? Will they change? I think they will. But if you're evaluating the league right now and you're looking at it, that to me is why, because you're not going to have as many opportunities to really increase your net ranking once you get into league play, if things stay true to right now. And then you're going to have some natural, just in the league, you're playing, quad 2s and you're playing them. And so your number is going to go up. But
so right now, just so you know, because remember, this changes daily, like almost by the day. UConn in the net is 8th.
Yeah.
Butler is 21. We've had some movement on other members of the Big East. You have Seton Hall moving up to inside the top 50. Woo! We're almost in that top 45, and we know who may put them on his Twitter if that happens. But Seton Hall has jumped into the top 50 just by staying put. Right? Villanova has jumped from 64 to 53 with a big win against Temple. Again, I was watching those games last night with Xavier and Temple side by side, and my wife was like, "Why do you care so much about these games?" And I was like, "Because I want the Big East not only to win, but I want them to win big." So like that Villanova win was a really great one for them, obviously, against a solid, not great Temple team, probably a quad 2 game, maybe quad 3, but you won by almost 20 points. That's huge for the net. So they move up 11 points. The opportunities are there landmines? I get what you're saying. But again, just like last year, I had Evan Mayakawa on my show last year and talked about this, to talk about Duke in particular, because the ACC was terrible last year. Terrible. Like, people talk about the Big East this year. I don't think it even compares to what the ACC, considering there's 18 teams. So if you think about it this way, a Louisville team that was a 9 seed was the second best team in conference last year. So the gap between Duke and the rest of the league was so wide, it was a chasm. So my point is Duke is benefiting from the lesser talent or the lesser teams that are on their schedule, or are we talking about something that is truly an efficient and great team? And he was obviously on the Duke side, and I was like, cool, tell me I'm wrong. But in this case with the Big East, I look at it from the perspective of, we're getting these surprises because people don't pay attention to the nuance. And not saying you, but the rest of the media doesn't pay attention to the nuance of the Seton Hall team is completely different than last year. Like, miles different. It's not the same team. It's like Shaka said during Big East Media Day. The reason why they picked us where they picked us is they've never seen my team play. And we're seeing that right away. The Butler team that you don't believe in, I maybe don't believe in them 1,000%, but I'm liking what I'm seeing between Finley Bizjack, Michael Ajayi, like that. This team is legit, and it's going to be around until it's not. So enjoy it while it lasts. The teams that need to just pick up the pace are, if St. John's picks up the pace, if Creighton picks up the pace, then we're talking about a 4 to 6 team, 6 bid league. And then all of this panic bullshit, landmines everywhere. Like, I don't care about it right now, because I know the future of this league is bigger than what most people will talk about, because everything is right now in the moment. Yeah, you have to have some perspective about, if this is the worst that the league is, it is one of the worst starts to Big East non-conference play we've ever had. we're not in that bad of a spot. Like,
no,
but it's not all
Mark,
sunshines and rainbows.
But
I also don't think the opposite is true as well.
Yeah, I think we have to be fair and understand too, is like the other people that are covering the college basketball, it's an attention economy, right? Like everybody wants attention. Everybody's putting content out to try to get views and clicks. And when we do the same thing. So I can't fault some of that. I think not having perspective, not thinking long-term, certainly people are guilty of it, myself included, probably. But I also think these videos, the tweets, all those things live in that moment. It's always easy to go back and look at, oh, well, I was wrong. I've been dead wrong. I mean, I was dead wrong about Butler so far, right? So, like, I think we have to always keep that perspective. What I just kind of looked at real quickly as you were talking is what I also feel like here is when you look at our league, you go 4 or 5, you go 5 teams deep, and then there's a massive drop off in the net rankings. Mm-hmm. Where the reason why that's a problem is because included in that drop off is Creighton, is Marquette, a Georgetown team that we thought would be better. So what you're saying, I believe, is completely right. If Creighton figures it out, if Georgetown figures it out, and we can climb up, and you don't have that big of a drop off anymore. Now you only have 3 or 4 teams kind of in that really bottom tier. Then the league is in a much better spot. When you look at the other power leagues, it's 9, and now they have more teams too. So you got to always factor that in. But the drop off doesn't come until way later. And like in the SEC, there really isn't one until the very last team. The ACC actually pretty good comparably. So that's only also part of the conversation.
I totally agree with you. But to your point, like the people that are covering it outside of us, who are covering it nationally, will not put those caveats in play. Now you have to look at the league from this perspective, right? Like, so like, and I'll say this, because we had this conversation pre-show. Even though the SEC has better numbers, does anyone really care about basketball in the SEC?
I cannot agree with you on this one. I can't.
They do not. They do not. Ask any fan, what is the hierarchy of the SEC? It is football. Then there's football. Then there's football. Yeah,
but can't you care about two things at the same time? Then there's
basketball. You can
care. I have 2 kids. I love them both the same.
Yeah, but that's not the same. We're not talking about, great example would be, and I have 3 kids. You always remember your first love first, which is football. So I don't love my children any differently, but you do remember your firstborn more than your thirdborn or your second, just in terms of how it all came about. So if your first love is football, it's always going to be football. It just is. You can learn to love something differently, but there's no way. And I have a personal example in my own house. My wife is the biggest Tennessee athletics fan ever. Like she's such a big Tennessee fan that she feels like Texas stole UT from them. She doesn't even she calls Tennessee UT. Most born and raised Tennesseans will do the same thing. UT's playing. Texas? No, fuck you. Tennessee's playing. Like they're SEC, like they love football. My wife never misses a Tennessee football game. They could be playing Austin P in a bye game and she's watching it. Okay. She's been to Neyland a million times. There is not a game she misses. Her reaction to Tennessee was just in the Elite 8 where they lost to Purdue a couple years back. Oh, that's nice. They'll probably lose. Like, there's no passion around the basketball. Even if they get sold out crowds.
I just want to make sure this is very clear. Mark's opinion represents Mark Zanetto.
No, I represent the entire Big East Energy Network because we have former players and coaches. The SEC, it doesn't mean more it means more bullshit.
I would agree with you on that.
Right, it does. Not here. And the only other conference that you can even potentially look at as it meaning the same in the Big East is the ACC, because there are absolute blue blood basketball programs in the ACC. Not that there isn't in the Big 12, but football is king in every other league with the exception of the Big East because there is no football. And I would even put the ACC in that league, that place, because when you think about it, their football conference right now, their ACC championship is essentially Duke, who's 7-5, who UConn beat, and who's playing them? SMU or whatever in the ACC championship game, and they're probably not even going to get anyone in the college football playoff because they're not good. Like the whole point is like football is king in other places. It is not king here. So even if
it's not, I don't think it's king.
No one cares.
I know, but I think you can not be the king sport and people still care. Like Kentucky?
Yeah, nice to have.
Arkansas?
No, Kentucky's literally the only team in the SEC that cares about basketball more. It's the only team. Arkansas is a football town, baby.
But
Nolan Richardson's been dead for 30 years.
But I do think
I don't even know if he's actually dead. I don't even know if that's true.
I think he is, but I don't know if you're gone, rest in peace. But I would also say this though. I think a lot of it has to depend on how good or bad the football team is. Like right now, I think you're going to make the argument. Now, here's the argument, right? If you could pick which team to be dominant, you're going to pick your football team to be dominant. I get that, but you can't. So you're going to live in the moment. And to me, like if I'm a Florida fan, I'm all in on hoops right now. If I'm a Kentucky fan, I'm always all in on hoops. I can't get behind that one, Mark. Normally I can find a way into your mind.
Listen, you don't believe in Butler, so I don't know if your opinion is valid.
I know. I don't believe in the dogs. I want to. I've told you I want to believe. I want to believe, but it takes a while to earn my trust, man. I've seen it. I've seen too much. I've seen too much of them. So we'll see. And look, I do not hide this. I am very biased against Butler, only because one of my best friends is a big time former player there, and I need to have something over him. So that's very fair. And because I have a lot of bad memories at Hinkle. I have a couple really good memories, but a lot of bad memories at Hinkle. So I don't love Butler. So,
and listen, I think with me, like there are teams in the Big East that I'm absolutely cannot stand. And there are teams that like I grew up hating, like Georgetown, Providence, even Seton Hall. But as time has gone on, like people are going to think I'm crazy, but as a UConn fan, I don't hate Creighton. Just don't. Like I remember being in college watching Creighton win a game with Dana Altman that they probably shouldn't have in the NCAA tournament. I was like, that's fucking awesome. Yeah. Like I was a huge, Creighton fan before they got into the Big East, right? And so I have no hatred towards Butler. Everyone's rooting for Butler in the NCAA tournament when they're in the Horizon League. I mean, come on, man. And I just like don't have that. Xavier, same thing. Like, it has zero to do with the relationships I've created with you guys. Because I love Jay, our host of Johnny's Report, but fuck him and fuck the St. John's fans. I can't stand them. Like, sorry, that's old school hatred. Same with Georgetown. Like, I love Owen, love Rasheem, like they're my boys, but sorry, Hoya paranoia. I'm just out. Like I can't do it. If they ever get back to prominence, and they're in the NCAA tournament and they're on the opposite side of UConn's bracket, I will root for Georgetown to advance. But outside of that, as a fan, no. I literally have a business that is based around, so do you, the Big East's success. And I still find myself being like, oh God, I can't root for Georgetown. It's probably the only team I can't do. Like even St. John's, like even with Patino, like I have not had a hard time rooting for them because I think it's good for the league and I don't have that same hatred. But Georgetown, man.
Yeah,
even Providence. I'll root for Providence all day because I want them to get better. But Georgetown could be DePaul for the rest of time, and I'd be happy.
Wow,
it's good for the league if Georgetown is not DePaul.
Agreed.
No disrespect, but man, if they are, I won't shed a tear. Let's just put it that way.
How you feeling about the matchup tonight?
Well, I think I've seen a few things here on the whole interwebs that maybe Darren Peterson is playing, but I also, you also can't tell. It's a 9:00 start. Kansas hasn't lost a December non-conference game in Allen Fieldhouse since 2017. Wow. So I think that ends tonight. I don't know if Terrace Reed is playing, so that'll make a big, deciding factor whether or not UConn wins this game, in my opinion, comfortably, or whether it's a real pain in the ass. And I think anytime you play in Kansas, it's going to be a tough game, no matter what. They could be awful, and it's going to that arena itself gives them like 5 or 6 extra points, like in my opinion. So I think that's honestly the only reason why UConn is favored by only 2 going into this game, based off when you look at the analytics. Kansas is 50th in offense. They're about even on defense, and UConn's top 5 right now in offense, or top 6. I think, this UConn team with Braylon Mullins back has the ability to space you enough where they can get anything they want anytime they want. And as long as they don't turn the ball over, and as long as they don't foul at the level that they have earlier this year, it looks like the way it should look like. I thought they played a B+ game against Illinois and still won by 13 points. And that was with Terrace playing like limited minutes because he's been hurting. So I don't know, man. Like, I just feel like you add Terrace Reed to the mix and they're a top 2 or 3 team in the country. Without him, I think they're still a top 10 team, and they have to grind games out. Yeah. That's kind of how I feel about this one tonight. What about you?
My gut says Peterson won't play. And I think it makes sense. We had talked about it a little bit, how Kansas is kind of in a nice rhythm right now, playing good basketball and inserting somebody into, because I don't know if you read that article. I think it was on ESPN. Bill Self said if he plays, he will start. So to me, it makes sense, right? Like, you put him in this game, the energy, the crowd, all those things factor in, and you're like, are you risking him just to win what would be a humongous win, obviously, but is it you taking too big of a chance? I don't know. So I kind of don't think he'll play. But if he does, awesome. I hope he does. I think it'll be great if he does, and I hope Terrace plays. I probably put too much stock into road versus home, and
I think it's a real thing.
Yeah, and I think that's, to me, where I see the advantage for Kansas is I've been in that building, and I remember we played there during COVID, and they didn't really even have fans allowed. It was just like students, and it was kind of weird how they did it, and it still felt loud. And then I've been in there just as a fan to watch games, and it is a madhouse. Like, anybody, Mark, I'm telling you, you've got to get there sometime in your life. It's unreal.
Got friends going to the game tonight. Like, so yeah. Shout out Basil, shout out Prem, shout out Mallory. Like, they're all there. They all people drove because of the plane fiasco, or like had to drive from like certain spots because they got delayed. And I know some people were flying and at least going to Kansas City and whatever. So yeah, I mean, like, I just know there's a ton of
wait till you talk to them after, because it is it's gosh, I don't know that I've ever been anywhere better than that for a game.
I had an opportunity to go pre-COVID when UNCGU was playing Kansas. That Kansas team was really good with who did they have that was that they were like, gosh, that team was incredible. Can't remember, but this one when the season got canceled. But anyway, I obviously did not, and I haven't been. So that's definitely a bucket list that needs to happen at some point in the future.
If you're a basketball fan, I'm sure it's not easy to get tickets, but make it happen somehow, and just take some time, go early, walk around, like check out the rules deal. That's pretty neat. I mean, the whole place is just super cool.
And I guess take a picture of the fake championship banners, or
I'm not going there with you on this one.
The Helms titles,
but no, it's a great place. So yeah, it'll be fun. I'm excited to watch it tonight. Obviously Creighton plays, so I'll have one eyeball on that game, one eyeball down on the court. But hopefully Creighton puts Nichols away early so I can focus a little bit more on the UConn game. But no, look, it'll be a great game. So,
and listen, it's the marquee game of the night, but there's a couple games that I'm interested in tonight, which are, you mentioned it earlier, like, if Butler blows the doors off of Eastern Michigan, I feel really good about them being back. Like, you just don't want them to slide back into, like, that's a tough game. They're a 17.5-point favorite. And then Marquette is playing at home against Valpo. I honestly don't know anything about Valpo. They're typically a pretty well-coached and good team through the history of time, right? Bryce Drew, all that stuff. Like, I don't know anything about them, but if Marquette struggles against Valpo at home, then I think there needs to be someone needs to get a hold of Shaka and be like, listen, bro, We love you. We love because I am in this camp too, where I think Shaka's a great person. I think he's a great coach. I think he physically wants to will these teams and make these kids better as people. But his job, just on paper, is to win basketball games at Marquette.
Mm-hmm.
If he wants to be an ambassador of goodwill outside of the Big East, I'm not. This isn't even a joke. Like, I'm being honest. Like, if he wants to be like the quote unquote guru of motivational speaking and kind of, because dude, like when you interview him, you get jazzed up. You like he says all the things that make you feel good. But if you're not getting the players that you need, or you're not developing the players that you need to get to a point where you can beat a team that you should beat by 20 or 30 points and then compete in the Big East, then I think he needs to kind of open that Pandora's box and get a couple transfer portal kids next year.
Yeah, this one is I'm kind of changing my opinion on the recruiting side of it. And
what do you mean?
Well, I was more in the camp of like, yeah, go get transfers and then supplement your roster with freshmen. I'm actually in the opposite side now. I feel like you build your roster with freshmen and you supplement with transfers. A lot of it is, again, I'm no different than anybody else, even though I coach. Like I'm a victim of the moment, and I'm looking at this Creighton team, and I'm seeing a bunch of new dudes that you brought in. Here's the thing, man. When you bring in a bunch of transfers in the Big East, you should be bringing other high major transfers or upper mid major transfers. There's always a reason why guys transfer, and I'm not saying that everybody that transfers has baggage, but most of them do. Most of them have something that's missing, and so they try to find whatever that is somewhere else. And it takes a long time to build. I think you look at St. John's, man. Like St. John's has so much talent that they brought in, yet they're still not meshed well. Now they'll figure it out because there's so much talent. But I think when you don't have the money like that to go out and just buy rosters like they did, I think you got to be really careful of building your team through the portal. But if you switch it and you just go out and you can get the best freshmen, right? If you look at the guys that Marquette's bringing in, like they're really good freshmen. And so now you build those players up, you develop their talent. You also have their loyalty, and because so many of these teams now are passing on freshmen. And so again, there is this like undercurrent of like guys that were in the top, the top 50 guys are always going to be going still to, the top schools, probably maybe more like top 25 guys. But when you get to that like 100 to 200 range, you got guys falling through the cracks, man, that there's just not as many spots for them anymore. And so I actually feel like it's a very intelligent decision to make to build your roster young, and then you go out and you fill your holes. If you hit big on a freshman and he's a one and done, he goes to the NBA, cool. Maybe you need to go out and get a transfer to fill that spot. But the other side of it is financially, and I know the Big East is in a good spot financially with rev share. All those things are true, but financially, you almost can build a discounted roster. Sure. Because it's like they always say it with jobs, right? Like if you stay at your current job forever, you're never going to make as much as if you were to go get another job every 5 years, right? Because you get a natural pay increase. I think of it kind of like that. Of like are you going to increase your NIL throughout your 4 years there if you stay for 4 years? Sure. But is it going to be as much as if you were to go transfer? But if you're at a Marquette and you're in the Big East and you're winning and you
made all these great points, and it's true. Like everything you're saying is true, but the last point, if you're winning.
But again, I think that's why it's going to take some time. And I'm not a Shaka apologist. He's a great coach. All those things are true. I think I'm more interested to see, like, I think I'm kind of in a position now where I'm like, you know what? I'm giving Shaka a pass on this year. Let me see next year.
I agree. But like, I also feel like there's a middle ground. So like, to me, if you don't use the portal at all, you're doing a disjustice to you're doing an injustice to the players that you brought in as freshmen to not help them develop at the rate that they can develop by bringing in guys that are your type of guys, can still have the exact same process, but in the transfer portal. Because this, like when you watch games now, like I do it too, like because I'm covering UConn, like I look at random guys from different leagues and I go, that guy looks like he could play for UConn. You know what I mean? Like, so
sure,
if you have a profile, if you have a type that you like, and Marquette can't bring in like one or two guys, like for example, you're trying to tell me that Cam Spencer, who played at UConn for 1 year, Cam Spencer, I feel like Cam Spencer was on UConn for 10 years. Like he was so ingrained into what UConn culture is that it took him a while to get to that UConn place. But if you have Shaka, I think Dan and Shaka have a mutual admiration society. They love each other, right? They always are respectful about each other's programs, blah, blah, blah. You're trying to tell me that Shaka can't look at Dan and go, we could do the same thing. Like UConn's still building a very similar program as Marquette. They're just doing it in a more strategic way and with probably the same NIL dollars. Like if Marquette isn't spending the same dollars as UConn and NIL, I don't know what the hell they're doing because they don't have football. So like my point is like you trying to tell me that you can't keep like because UConn kept Jay Stu, they kept Jay Ross, they've kept Alex for 4 years. They've kept multiple guys for 3-4 years, and then they've added strategic freshmen, the Steph Castles, this year the Braylon Mullins. They add strategic pieces that are grad students like Melander and Smith, a junior transfer in Silas. Like so, you can still have your top 10 recruiting class, but add one or two transfers that make sense. And then one or two more transfers that are culture guys. Like Dwayne Coromo is from Lemoyne. Like he's there for energy. He's there to kind of build the culture. Yeah. Alec Melander, same thing. Insurance policy in case someone gets hurt. Like those guys aren't playing, but they're building your culture. They're supplementing the lack of talent that you have on the back end of your roster. And there's 15 guys now. He's got to be able to do something like that. Like I'm sorry.
I agree with you. I think we're saying very similar things. What I'm looking at is the difference between my Jays, St. John's versus what UConn did. UConn retained a lot of their talent, a lot of their roster, and they supplemented it, and they were able to go spend big on the guys that they got that they knew were going to be really big impact players. I don't agree with what Marquette's doing and taking this stance of we're not going to go get transfers. And I think it's a little disingenuous anyways, because Marquette, like people forget Tyler Kolek was a transfer. Like, am I correct? Like Oso was a transfer, I believe. Maybe I could be wrong on that one. But like they've brought in transfers, but what their stance is now is that we're not doing it and we're just going to go get freshmen. I don't think that's the way to go. What I think now is let me see what they do next year. Let me see where Shaka looks at his roster and says, okay, I really need a whatever it is, point guard. Let's go get a point guard in the transfer portal. Be very selective of who that player is. It's got to be a culture guy. It's got to be the guy that's going to defend. It's got to be a high energy guy. All those things. That to me is the way to go, rather than you go out and you get a bunch of transfers every single year, like St. John's is going to have to do next year. Creighton, depending on what happens to that roster, they might be in a position to go get a couple guys. I think actually Creighton's going to be in a good spot in that regard. That's what I'm saying. Like to me, the UConn blueprint is a very good blueprint. It's a little different because it's UConn, but I think Marquette should be able to do the same type of thing. And it'll be interesting to see what they do next year. But I guess I'm saying I'm okay with letting them have a year to kind of stink, develop, see how they are later in the year, and then make their decisions in how they build that roster moving forward. But
I don't disagree.
I was the opposite.
I think I have a similar mentality when it comes to the Big East in general, because I know that UConn and St. John's are going to be good. And I know that St. John's has struggled a little bit. UConn is going to be competing for a national championship. St. John's is going to still make the tournament and hopefully be, get their shit together so that, they're not a quad 2 game or something like that. Then you have the surprises that we talked about earlier in the year. But to put a bow on it, like I still feel like everything you just said about Marquette is how I feel about the Big East as a whole. I'm not as concerned as other pundits because I know what's coming. I know that rev share is coming. I know that teams are preparing to pay players at a level that is not the same as they were a couple years back. Like Seton Hall's NIL now is not what it's going to be a year or two from now. It's going to be 2 or 3 times that. So if you think Shaw's getting the players that he wants now, wait till he has a few more bullets in his chamber to go get even bigger and better transfers. Better. I mean, Najee Hines stayed home. That kid's a monster as a freshman. 6'10", 270. Like, I mean, if he sticks around, because they can pay him again next year, like the same, if not more than an SEC or a Big 12 school can, that's a guaranteed where he doesn't have to do appearances for some booster or some crap that, pays him a little extra money on the side. Like, that's going to be the difference. Like, do you want to come to a school where you're just worried about your basketball because you don't have to supplement the fact that, we can't give you the same rev share money, but we have to, we can give you more NIL money, but you have to do X, Y, and Z. Well, just come to Seton Hall because you don't have to do any of that shit. Like, you can make the exact same amount of money, if not more, and it's guaranteed, baby. Every 2 weeks that money hits the account. So, you don't have to worry about some of the text and screenshots you see from these SEC schools that are promising kids money, and they're like, "Hey, where's my money? My mom has a mortgage that goes to this. Like, what are we doing?" So, by the way, that's like real. Like, I'm not just making that up. Like, I've seen there's the whole NIL game outside of the rev share is the wild, wild west. And so, if you can get into a Big East school and go play basketball or whatever else you play, and you get a revenue check from the school, that's where the big money is going to go. And that's why the Big East is in a much better position than people are really giving it credit for. So even if this year is difficult, like at the beginning it has been, it's not all sunshines and rainbows, but it's not all doom and gloom. And I think we really need to make sure that we're staying on message with that, because the truth, straight up.
Agreed.
All right, man. Good show today. Any plans? Actually, let me ask you this question. What do you guys do for Christmas? Do you guys stick around, or you go someplace warm, or what do you do?
Yeah, no, we typically stick around here. I guess that's not true. We'll do Christmas here, and then we'll go somewhere. Last year we decided, let's just stay home. Big mistake.
Huh?
With the league last year was 7, and we had a 7 and a 5-year-old. Now they're 8 and 6. I'm like, no, we're not making that mistake again. So we'll be hitting the road. I was gonna save this, but we might be heading your way, Mark. So might be doing a little pod together. Maybe I'll check out the UConn home studio at some point.
Whoa!
We'll see. So we'll see. We're trying to figure it all out. But I think we're gonna head that way. So, how about you guys? Cool. I mean, now in terms of what we do, we always go to dinner. Like the 23rd, and Christmas Eve is really big for my wife and her family. So we've kind of brought that into to our household. So we really like Christmas Eve, and then cross your fingers that Santa comes, and Christmas Day you wake up to a nice Christmas tree filled with gifts for the kids. But other than that, man, we keep it pretty low key. So we just enjoy it, man. It's just nice. You get a couple days off, you hang. Actually, Mark, I don't know about you, I've been very anti Christmas music before, until Thanksgiving is over. It's been my thing forever. I worked retail when I was young. So, you start listening to Christmas music, around Halloween, and it's brutal. And so I've always been like, nah, we're not doing Christmas music. Talking to a friend of mine the other day, man, he was kind of talking about his kids are getting older, and he's like, I don't know how many more Christmases I have before they're really going to start just like, it's just Christmas. So I was like, man, you know what? You're right. So I've just flipped a switch this year. We've been listening to Christmas music since November 1st. It's Christmas all over the place here. So I don't know. How about you?
Yeah, no, it's definitely changed a lot since I was a kid. Like Christmas Eve used to be like a big deal in my my mom's side of the family, and we'd always do that. And then Christmas Day was on my dad's side. But now that I have my own family, we we'll do something low key. My mother-in-law will be in town on Christmas, and we got the 3 kids, and it's just going to be chaos with toys and stuff like that. My parents are coming early. They're coming in a couple weeks, and then we'll do a Christmas with them at some point. So that'll be fun. But I want to give a shout out to my uncle Mike is going through some health issues, and I think he's been released from the hospital right now. But he is a former UConn Board of Trustees member, and I know that he probably is not happy about the Jim Morris stuff, but is definitely still rooting for UConn and Kansas. Like, I have pictures of me with multiple championship rings, because if you're on the Board of Trustees, you get title rings. So he's got quite a few of those in his possession. I think he was on the Board of Trustees from 2000 to 2010, so or maybe 2014, somewhere in that range. So he definitely has a couple of the men's and women's both winning in the same year. So I wish him, hopefully we get some good news about him in the coming weeks, and as he's kind of battling some stuff. But just wanted to mention him on the pod and tell him that we're thinking about him and that we love him.
Yeah,
but
Mike, thinking about you, Mike.
Big T, Big T-O. Yeah, I want to. But yeah, man, it's gonna be a low key Christmas, just in like there was low key Thanksgiving, and just gonna watch a lot of hoops, man, and not cry about how bad the Giants and the Dolphins are.
Dude, the Dolphins keep winning, man. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, we're not gonna make the playoffs. Like, we're just hurting ourselves from a draft position, and Mike McDaniel's gonna get to hold on to his job somehow. I'm like, anyways.
What do you think about the comment about, if you're losing, you can't wear capris? Are you cool with him wearing capris when they're like 1-7? I know they started to win.
Yeah, I don't care. I want people to be authentic. So like, it would bother me more. It would bother me more if he stopped doing those things because they're losing. Like, it's like, whatever, man. Just be who you are. If you're good enough, you're good enough.
You guys rolly rock bezel.
And like, that's been who he is, right? And people loved him for it. But like, they always love you when you're winning. So when you're not winning, it's like, stop. No, don't stop doing that. Be who you are.
You heard it here first. Casey's okay with his head coach looking like a Miami Coke dealer.
Now, I did not say I want you to be the head coach anymore, but I'm just saying I want you to keep doing what you're doing because that's who you are. I would like for you to go do that somewhere else next year, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Sell your drugs someplace else is what Casey just said. All right. This has been another episode of the Big East Energy Network's weekly show on Big East Energy. Casey, I hope Creighton dominates tonight, and you know what's up, man. First time the Road Blues have been out in a very long time. It's not confirmed, but it kind of is that they're wearing these tonight. So
all right,
that's why this is. It's also Kansas. You gotta go big. I literally put this on first thing in the morning. Took my son to school in this. I picked up coffee while wearing all Connecticut gear in my Braylon Mullins hat. Wow. So and I have a UConn sweatshirt underneath with Alex Caravan's name on the back. So I'm fanning out today because I want all that good energy in the air for the next few hours before game time. So
I love it. Go do it.
Go Huskies. Peace.